Why Gears Tactics? Honestly, no big reason. I'm not even a Gears of War fan and haven't actually played any of the other games in the series. But as I was browsing through various games in the genre, Gears Tactics kind of leaped out at me. Maybe it was visually good looking graphics and the sleek animations, or the characters with their bulky armor and giant chainsaw guns, or this. In any case, it looked like a game that would be fun to play and might even make for an interesting video. So here we are. At its core, Gears Tactics is a familiar squad-based tactical strategy game, or as many would call it, an XCOM-like. You control a squad of up to 4 characters, move them around the map, use cover, and fight enemies with a combination of skills and equipment, all while essentially rolling a die for each action. Now, I don't think we need to spend too much time on the basics, because if you've played any similar game before, you already know how these fundamentals work. What's more interesting are the ways Gears Tactics shakes things up. And surprisingly, there's quite a lot to cover here. For starters, this game leans heavily into its story-based approach. The campaign is full of cutscenes and dialogue-heavy story missions, which isn't common in this genre, and gives it a bit of a cinematic flair. Base and squad management also differ significantly from other games in this space. But before we dive into that, let's start with the most critical part – the combat mechanics. Starting with the biggest difference. Instead of having a set move and action like in D&D, your characters get action points, or AP, which you can spend however you want. Want to move through half of the map? Go for it. Shoot 3 times in a row? Totally doable. Throw a grenade, move, and then use an ability? Absolutely. You can mix and match actions however you like. This system fundamentally changes the gameplay, as action points become a resource you'll need to carefully manage. Each character starts with 3 actions per turn, but there's the catch. There are tons of ways to interact with them. Some characters can earn extra AP by performing certain actions. Supports can grant AP to others, and there are even abilities that provide refunds. The depth here is impressive, and it's the main mechanic that drives the game's strategy. In the later stages, when you really maximize this system, you can sometimes squeeze out up to 10 actions from a single character. This system works in tandem with the execution mechanic. Sometimes, instead of killing enemies outright, you'll down them, giving you the option to move in for a glorious bloody execution, which gives all allies an extra action point. This, combined with the other AP generation mechanics, can often turn combat into a bit of a puzzle, where you'll need to figure out the optimal sequence of actions to maximize AP and keep the momentum on your side. When done right, it can feel incredibly satisfying and almost too powerful, as you might not even give enemies a chance to act. Beyond the action points, there are a few other neat tweaks that give Gears Tactics its own flavor. One that I liked is the actual lines of sight. If something or someone is in the way, the shot might hit Z instead of the target.
Almost out.
And yes, that includes allies. Also, if you kill an enemy mid-burst, the remaining bullets can hit another target behind them. It's a small and obvious detail, but other games don't really do it, even though it adds a layer of realism and tactical depth.
Got him.
Another interesting aspect is how Overwatch works. Not that one is unwelcome here. Overwatch shares the same name and general concept as XCOM, but the execution is very different. First, you have to select a specific section of space for your character to watch. This adds a layer of strategy, forcing you to predict enemy movements and carefully place your Overwatch zones. Lines of sight also come into play. If an enemy moves through the Overwatch zone while mostly in cover, your shots will likely hit that cover. Plus, time doesn't freeze when Overwatch triggers, which adds another layer of tactical consideration. But don't let all that fool you into thinking Overwatch is weak. It's actually incredibly strong in Gears tactics, thanks to two things: interrupts and multi-shot triggers. When an enemy triggers your Overwatch, there's a chance it will interrupt whatever action they were about to do, leaving them wide open. And if you had multiple action points when you set up Overwatch, you'll shoot that many times. You can practically turn the battlefield into a minefield of bullets, shredding enemies the moment they step into your kill zone.
They're making a move.
It's beautiful. Lastly, Gears Tactics throws a surprising twist into the mix: boss fights. Yes, actual boss encounters in a tactical strategy game. There aren't many, just 3, but the first one catches you by surprise and is super engaging, with great music to boot. While the later boss fights didn't capture the same magic for me, they're still a welcome change of pace and a fun addition to the game's combat. That wraps up this slice of my Gears Tactics review. Thanks so much for watching. Next time I'll be diving into topics like we enter the convoy. Now here's the bummer, which feels like a missed opportunity. Unlike many games in this genre, side missions, loot boxes, a disaster, which is a fun twist. As for the loot itself, wow, this changes everything moment. So if that sounds interesting, make sure to subscribe and don't forget to like and comment. I'd love to hear from you, and it really helps the channel out. Catch you in the next slice, or feel free to check out any of my previous videos in the meantime.